At his first birthday Juajo ceremony, the little boy suddenly chose a pair of handcuffs, leaving his biological family stunned because almost everyone present were convicted prisoners. To lighten the mood, they took a birthday photo with the boy, but just after the photo was taken, the prison warden barged in. Prisons are not allowed to hold birthday parties without permission, so they were kicked out of the room and awaited punishment. The boy's mother stepped forward to plead and explained that she only wanted to celebrate her son's first birthday. However, the warden showed no leniency and instead tore their newly taken photo to pieces.
The
warden's words left her speechless and also filled her heart with guilt. In fact, he was indeed imprisoned for committing a crime, which led to his son having to live inside the prison cell. A year and a half ago, Xin Hui, who was pregnant, was beaten at home by her husband. In resisting, she accidentally caused her husband's death. She was then sentenced to 10 years in prison and gave birth to their child after being incarcerated. According to South Korean law, if a female inmate gives birth in prison, she can raise her child there for a year and a half. During this year, her son Young-ru became the prison's little joy. Not only did the inmates all love Young-ru, but the prison warden also. She would also happily hold Minju and slowly make friends in prison, including a young guard with a sexual phobia and his group of roommates. Although prison life has many restrictions, having her son's companionship, Jenhui still felt that life was already warm enough. On this day, a new inmate arrived in Jenhui's room. After the new inmate entered the room, he sat down by himself, and the roommates decided to give each other a rough welcome. Just as the two were about to fight, Minju approached to embrace her beloved, beautiful sister. However, the newcomer pushed Minju down, and when confronted by Jenhui, he responded very harshly. After hearing this, Jenhui couldn't hold back and two of them started pulling each other's hair on the ground. After this incident, they were put in solitary confinement for a day. However, that very night, the newcomer went crazy, banging his head against the wall. His movements were hysterical, and he kept shouting that he didn't want to live anymore. After the day of solitary ended, Jenhui learned from Kum Yu-ching the reason why the newcomer was imprisoned. Since childhood, Yume was abused by her stepfather, who even attempted to assault her in college, but she fiercely resisted. Then, in a panic, she killed the other person with an iron weapon. Her mother, who was returning home, saw this scene. However, her mother lacked education and beauty. Through sobs, her mother blamed her for accidentally killing the family's pillar. After learning about Yume's ordeal, Jenhui no longer held a grudge about previous events. A few days later, Yume returned to the prison cell from the infirmary. Her cellmates learned the details and tacitly stopped making things difficult for this unfortunate person. It seemed that Jenhui truly likes the beautiful sister Minju. Once again, he walked over to Yume. He approached and hugged Yume, and this time Yume did not push him away. That day, the prison held a cultural performance performed by a women's choir. Listening to the choir's harmonious and beautiful singing, one would truly be moved to tears. Thinking that he would be separated from Minju in half a year, he decided to personally give his son a performance before parting. After the event, he approached the warden and expressed his desire to form a choir. The warden did not find his idea fanciful. Instead, he readily agreed. The warden also promised that as long as they successfully complete a performance, he and Minju would receive a day of pardon. Thus, Jenhui obtained it. The right choir requires a chief conductor to form a choir. The first candidate is my roommate Wen-Yu's grandmother. She used to be a music teacher, and with her involvement, the choir is sure to be successfully established. However, Juanhui did not expect that Wen-Yu's grandmother would straightforwardly reject him. In fact, in Wen-Yu's grandmother's heart, music evoked sad memories. In her youth, he was a piano teacher. He had a female student who often came to his home to learn piano. But one day, when she returned home from an outing, she unexpectedly discovered her husband seemingly involved with the female student. He covered his children's ears to shield them from the unbearable sounds in the room. Overwhelmed by his husband's and student's betrayal, he had an emotional breakdown, drove the pair, and killed them both. When South Korea abolished the death penalty, his sentence was commuted to suspended. This incident caused Wen-Yu's daughter to always resent him. The daughter hates him for ruining the family and for making the young siblings grow up without parents. Therefore, every time her brother brings her to visit, her eyes are filled with coldness. Every time he calls his daughter, she is unwilling to talk to him. The estrangement from his biological daughter is a knot in his heart. To some extent, he has already lost his daughter. However, after so many years of life from prison, he has long regarded the juniors here. After Junhui's repeated requests, Grandma Wen-Yu finally agreed. Subsequently, Junhui's plan to form the group got back on track, with Grandma Wen-Yu acting as conductor to help her select the troop members. Many people wanted to join the choir, but most didn't know how to sing. By continually lowering the entry requirements, they ultimately preliminarily selected a group of members. However, a new problem arose during practice. None of the members were professional singers. They needed a soprano who could lead everyone. At this moment, Zhenhui suddenly remembered that Yume was a student at the music university. Once, she passed by Jinbi City, where Yume was singing alone. Yume's singing was clear and resonant. She was absolutely the best candidate for a soprano. Zhenhui told this to Grandma Wenyu and asked her to persuade Yume to join the choir. The next day, Grandma privately approached Yume, but as soon as Grandma extended the invitation,
어차피 당신이나 나나 사람 귀찮게 하지 말고.
Actually, it's not Yume's true intention. She just doesn't know how to communicate properly. Growing up in an abnormal environment, she can only wrap herself in indifference and bitterness. Yume's mother often comes to visit her in prison, but she refuses to meet her mother every time. He knew his mother felt guilty towards him, yet he could never persuade himself to forgive her, until that day when he saw his mother's frail figure while cleaning. At that moment, seeing his dejected mother stumbling outside the window, Yume realized she, like him, was in pain. Later, persuaded by Kong Yujin, he sought Grandma Wenyu. He apologized to Grandma Wenyu, who did not reproach the poor girl. Treating Yume like her own daughter, Grandma Wenyu gently counseled her. I know you are tired and in pain. Like you, I also have my own suffering. But since life is like this, why not live the remaining time with a smile? These words were spoken to Yume, but in fact, they were also Grandma Wenyu speaking to herself. Although life is filled with mistakes and pain, people must continue to live. Yume joined Zhenhui's singing project choir and finally got back on track. He actively organized activities to improve the members' cohesion and gathered the members for training every day. Among everyone in the choir, Zhenhui was always the most hardworking one. He mustered up the courage to ask Yume for help to teach him the correct vocal techniques. He followed Yume's vocal training and practiced with full dedication every day. With day after day of effort, he became the best amateur singer in the group and acquiring there. Under their leadership, they gradually achieved stage-ready standards. Later that night, Minju suddenly had a high fever. Zhenhui wanted to personally take the child to the hospital, but kindly Kong Yujin could only handcuff him due to the rules. He followed the prison guard to the hospital. People there became wary upon seeing the handcuffs. The doctor gave Minju an injection and then informed Zhenhui it was just a regular anesthetic. When caring for Minju, the handcuffs made her movements very inconvenient. Seeing this, Kong Yujin made another kind decision.
엄마 손이 제일 좋은 약손이라잖아요.
That night, Zhenhui sat by Minju's side the whole evening. He touched the mole on Minju's hand, feeling the warm strength from his son's palm. Minju would be separated from him soon, making every second precious to him. 6 months later, the choir finally had its first performance. The supervisor invited the Minister of Justice to watch. The prison's auditorium was packed. As Grandma Wenyu waved the conductor's baton, gentle and cheerful singing filled the entire hall. The song's melody conveyed joy and also embodied their hopes for new beginnings. Their performance concluded amidst applause. At the end, Zhenhui was able to see Minju's smiling face as he had wished. Afterwards, the Minister of Justice praised the warden and said that the choir could remain in the prison indefinitely. Later, Zhenhui would be granted a one-day pardon to go outside. However, the date for Minju's adoption was also set, falling on the same day as the special events. On the day before the special events, Zhenhui made an excessive request to Kong Yujin. He requested the prison not to reveal his existence to Minju, nor tell him anything about Lingyan. Because he is a murderer, he wants Minju to grow up as a child of a normal family. On the day of going out, he took off his prison uniform and put on normal clothes. He took Minju to the adoption center and then entrusted the staff to hand the photo album to the adoptive parents. The photos inside were taken by Kong Yujin, documenting Minju's growth over the past year and a half. Afterwards, he approached Minju through the glass. After saying goodbye, he followed Kong Yujin out, but when he reached the main gate, he suddenly stopped. He turned around and started running back recklessly, and when he got back, he found Minju already being held by someone else. Watching Minju cry in Mother Yang's arms, she also started crying outside the window. At that moment, he was very aware that in the many years to come, there would be a long separation between him and Minju. After returning to prison, he became despondent as if his soul was lost. He felt a void in his heart, and that emptiness caused him daily pain. At this time, he was like a heartbroken child. Grandma Wenyu consoled him constantly, like a mother.
죽고 싶고 울고 싶어도 웃어라. 네가 웃어야 네 자식이 웃는다. 만날 사람 언젠가는 꼭 만난다.
After that, he truly began to try to overcome the grief of losing his child. Every day, he would go to quiet practice to let the power of music dispel the gloom in his heart. The monks' choir became a shared interest among the prisoners and gradually turned into the bond connecting them. As they spent days and nights together, they grew closer and, over time, saw off one friend after another. Days slowly passed, and 4 years later, the monks' choir had become excellent and was featured in the media and magazines. On Christmas Eve, Kong Yujin brought good news. They were invited to perform at a Seoul theater and could invite their families to watch. Additionally, after the performance, they would have an hour to meet with their families. Most members of the choir were very happy and eagerly prepared for the meeting in advance, but there were a few exceptions this time. Grandma Wenyu wanted to invite her daughter, but she hung up the phone for fear of rejection. Yumi refused to invite her own mother. She still hasn't forgiven her mother. Jinhui also didn't send the invitation letter because she was afraid Minju would find out that her mother is a murderer. Their struggles and pain were all noticed by Kong Yujin. Kong Yujin took it upon himself to invite Yumi's mother, and then went to visit Minju's adoptive parents. He also went to Wenyu's daughter's house, but was met with a firm refusal. However, Kong Yujin was persistent. He eventually stuffed the tickets into the door crack. A few days later, the choir was escorted by the prison guards to the Seoul theater. However, just as they were applying makeup and getting ready, the police maintaining order stormed in. At that moment, a theft occurred in the theater. A noblewoman's ring was lost in the restaurant. In fact, the noblewoman had accidentally left the ring on the ground, but as a group of criminals with prior records, they were still treated as suspects. The police made them huddle together in the corridor and demanded that they remove their clothes for a forced search. Some even tried to argue and resist, but were forcibly pinned to the ground by the officers. Because of this sudden incident, the organizers decided to cancel the choir's performance segment. After finding out, the head of the performing arts was very angry. He instructed the section chief to communicate with the organizers and then hurried backstage. Upon seeing the female inmates kneeling in a row naked, the warden chose to trust the prisoners in his prison.
지금 여기서 뭐 하시십니까? 여기 공연한 사람들! 세수자 중에서 모범수로 선별된 사람들과 몰라요? 우리 합창단이 도둑이면 내가 책임집니다. 뭐해요?
To the unpleasant episode, they changed into pure white performance costumes and walked on stage together during the singing segment, with their family members in the audience. As the music began, they started singing the songs they had rehearsed many times. They sang earnestly, but as they sang, their eyes filled with tears. They expressed remorse through music, thanking their families for being able to attend. After a song concluded, the choir's performance ended amidst tears and applause. But just as they were about to go off stage, all the lights in the hall suddenly went out. Accompanied by a chorus of young children's voices, a group of kids holding candles approached the choir. Reunited with their families from the audience. Yume finally accepted her mother's apology. In that moment, she was ready to reconcile with her mother. Grandma Wenyu was pleased her hurried-over son bore her no resentment. Although his daughter had secretly arrived, she ultimately did not meet him. Genhui also finally reunited with Minju, but at this moment, Minju addressed her as auntie. He politely greeted Minju, and then learned that Minju had changed her name.
민우야. 훈아, 아줌마 한번 꼭 안아줄래요?
엄마, 훈이 유치원 갈 때 하는 인사 있지? 보여드려. 사랑해요.
나도.
Separately, Chen Yan's mother gave Jen Hui a photo album, which contained Min Yu's growth over the past 4 years. Watching Min Yu slowly grow in the photos, her tears cascaded like a flood breaking through a dam. He didn't want Min Yu to bear the stigma of being the descendant of a murderer, yet he truly wished to be the one to watch her grow up. Shortly after the performance concluded, news reached the prison of a recent heinous murder case. South Korea reinstated the death penalty because of this incident. Wen Yu's grandmother had her suspended death sentence changed to execution, and that night prison guards escorted Wen Yu to her daughter's home. Wen Yu's grandmother walked into the house where her son and daughter were already waiting. Her children had been informed in advance that this would be the family's final farewell. After the daughter and son performed a bowing ceremony before Wen Yu, they shared a hearty dinner together. That night, the three of them lay down to sleep in the bedroom, and while Wen Yu was asleep, the daughter gently took his hand. The following afternoon, Kong Yoo-jin arrived. In order to prevent others from knowing, Kong Yoo-jin falsely said someone visited.
우리 성님은 말라는 우리 티나보네. 평생 면회 한 번 안 하던 양반이 어제 오늘 연장으로 면...
면회 안 한다고 하세요.
미안하다.
미안하다고 하지 마요.
괜찮다. 우물지 마라.
Despite the relentless footsteps of death, Grandma Wen Yu walked out of prison. As she passed each cell, her inmates began singing the white proton language he had taught them. This song was both the performance piece he taught his students and the farewell song the daughters dedicated to him. Ah, the peacefulness and serenity that a heartfelt prayer brings to my troubled and weary heart. I am officially saying my farewell now, bidding goodbye to all at Happy Hall. Take care. Amen. Amen. Oh, I completely and wholeheartedly agree with what you have just expressed and fully support your statement now.